Our discussion of consonants starts with a contrast with vowels. So vowels are all similar in some ways. They are a homogeneous class. For all vowels, there's a phonation sound that's modified by the resonances of the vocal tract based on the posture of the tongue to create a distinctive spectral pattern of formant frequencies that you'll learn more about in speech science. Vowels provide the core for a word. Every word has at least one syllable in it. Each of those syllables has to have a nucleus, which is normally a vowel. We don't find vowels in the onset or coda position. Consonants are basically everything that isn't a vowel. They are an inhomogeneous class. They don't necessarily rely on the sound of phonation as a sound source, but some either rely on it or use it. They are generally not found in the nucleus, but some can be. They are found in both the onset and the coda position generally. Our consonants vary widely from being almost vowel-like to completely unlike vowels. The production of consonants generally requires a vowel in the environment. So we don't have consonants normally appearing without vowels. Consonants can be in prevocalic position, where they are before a vowel, in postvocalic position, where they are after a vowel, or in intervocalic position, where they are between vowels. For some consonants, the transition with the vowel is as important as the acoustics of the consonant itself in order for you to be able to hear the vowel. So for example, voiced stop consonants like b, d, and g are really mostly silents. A lot of the information on the adjacent vowel is crucial to perceiving them. An example of b in each of the different pre, post, and intervocalic position can be found in the words bee, ebb, and oboe. Consonants create and shape noise in a variety of ways. Sonorant consonants, sometimes called resonant consonants, are similar to vowels in that sound source comes from vocal fold vibration in the larynx, and that sound is then shaped by the cavities of the vocal tract. Obstruent sounds, or non-resonant consonants, have a sound created by constricting the flow of air through the vocal tract to generate a noise, and that noise is then shaped by the cavities in front of that constriction. This shaping of the sound by the vocal tract affects the acoustic result that's transmitted to the ear. That acoustic result is described by a frequency spectrum, a range of frequencies contained in the sound. Vowels and resonant consonants tend to have most of their energy in the lower frequency portion of the spectrum, in part because they have resonance based on the shape of the whole vocal tract, which is a bigger cavity, and larger things have lower frequencies in general. Obstruent consonants tend to have most of their energy in the higher frequency portion of the spectrum because they're shaped by only part of the vocal tract, a smaller cavity. And this basic distinction is important, for example, in people with hearing loss, where they tend to lose higher frequencies more than lower frequencies, so the obstruent consonants can be much harder to hear than the vowels and the resonant consonants for that population. Each of our consonants has a manner of articulation or a manner of production that reflects the type of constriction that is made for the consonant. Stop consonants, sometimes also called plosives, have a complete closure of the vocal tract, so flow of air out of the vocal tract is blocked completely. For a fricative consonant, there is a narrow constriction of the vocal tract that the airstream is forced through. For affricate consonants, we have a stop that is followed by a fricative in close combination. Nasal consonants are like stops in that there is a closure within the oral cavity. However, the velopharyngeal port is opened so that resonance can go through the nasal cavity. Liquid consonants have a less narrow constriction of the vocal tract, and in English we have two different versions of that. One is the lateral sound, where there is a mid-sagittal closure, but airflow is allowed around the sides or laterally in the way the articulation is made. The other version of a liquid we have in English is the rhotic sound, the r. It's best defined by its distinctive acoustic result, which is that the third resonance frequency or third formant of this sound is very low. Articulatorily, this comes from constrictions in the lips, palate, and pharyngeal regions simultaneously. The most vowel-like consonants, the glides, sometimes also called semivowels, have the tongue body raised like a high vowel. So there is perhaps a little bit of constriction, but they're very vowel-like and just really briefer and more dynamic in duration. Consonants that share the same manner of articulation are referred to as homotypic consonants, thus consonants of the same type. Each consonant also has a place of articulation or a place of production, which is the location of the constriction to the extent that it has one. Most of these constrictions are made by the tongue, but bilabial consonants, for example, involve the two lips coming together, and labiodental consonants involve the lower lip moving to the upper teeth. In interdental consonants, the tongue tip is placed between the teeth. In alveolar consonants, the tongue tip or blade is brought close to the alveolar ridge just behind the teeth. In palatal consonants, the tongue blade is brought up against the hard palate. For velar consonants, the tongue body is brought close to the velum or the soft palate. The glottal consonants have articulation within the larynx only. Consonants that share the same place of articulation are called homorganic consonants. The final basic dimension of consonant production is voicing, which describes the state of the larynx and the vocal folds. For voiced consonants, the vocal folds are generally adducted, closed, to create a vibration during or near the production of the consonant. For voiceless consonants, the vocal folds are abducted. They are opened during production to allow airflow. Consonants that differ only in voicing are referred to as cognates. We can identify each consonant uniquely by the combination of voicing, place, and manner information, and they're usually given in that order by convention. So, for example, the voiced bilabial stop is the B sound. There are some additional nuances of consonant production that we will look at progressively over the remainder of the course. Stop consonants are sometimes aspirated, providing an extra period of noise before beginning the following vowel. This is generally found in English in voiceless stops before a stressed vowel, so the T in top versus the T in after. Unreleased stops are stops where a closure is made, but that closure is not released. That necessarily would be for a stop that's in a final position, because if you have more speech to say, you're going to have to release that stop. But in something like pot, you can produce that without releasing the T sound at the end. Intervocalically, alveolar stops and the alveolar nasal can be flapped, where a very brief closure is made. So the T sound in butter is our alveolar flap sound that we have used some in transcription. That can happen for a nasal sound as well in something like winner, where you don't really make a full N sound. You just flap the tongue up while the velopharyngeal port is open. Sounds in the environment of a nasal sound are sometimes nasalized. This is typical in English for a vowel that's followed by a nasal consonant. So for example, the A vowel in the word same. But as in the nasal flap I showed above, that nasalization was applied in that case as well. In addition, as we start to think about transcribing in cases of clinical speech, for a child with a cleft palate, there may be nasal emission happening for quite a few speech sounds, and so indicating nasalization may be appropriate. Sounds are sometimes devoiced, where there is a lack of vocal fold vibration where it would otherwise normally be expected. In some dialects, the speaker's production of word initial w is devoiced, as in which. This text also uses the upside down W symbol to transcribe that. This may also be present in the case of voice disorders where a person has difficulty making reliable phonation.